You have a name. Let's get ready to get serious. I'm not playing around. I have no time for playing. Now, I met this brother a few years ago in passing, really, Washington, D.C. Last time he been on that show, last time I was on the show, too. I did a radio program in Washington. Steve was following me. He was doing the program after and we talked for a couple of minutes. And I said, I like this brother. 2 minutes. I knew we needed. That's all you need. You can sum up somebody in 60 seconds. It don't take but 60 seconds at most to sum up anybody. You ought to be able to know anybody in 60 seconds. I mean, when I was trying cases, that was the greatest thing that I was known for, selecting jurors. I knew about jurors better than anybody. That was my forte, was picking jurors. White boy used to come to the courtroom to see me pick jurors. That's a fact. You couldn't get in there for crackers trying to figure out what I knew. That's reality. But everybody, I reduced it. I looked at a juror one time to tell you where they belonged or not. I had to say nothing. People know that. Sometimes I wouldn't ask nobody a question. I just look at them and say, get them all out of here. And so when I met Steve, I knew that he was somebody that we needed in New York. And we went to work. And in a few weeks, we got him up here. We didn't take long. No hesitation. Immediately got the brother here. And he really has expanded our horizons. All right? Because, you see, you really have to go over this tape tonight. Over and over again. You got to go to the library and expand on what was said. This stuff is deep. It's real deep, and you just can't leave here tonight and not get into some heavy research. That's how heavy this stuff is. The stuff that Steve is dealing with. It has to really be analyzed. And I know that since that time, I have certainly got into the books much deeper. Much deeper. And so I'm just so pleased tonight that I believe all of New York has come out to greet you, Steve. They're up and down Fulton Avenue right now. Tonight was one of those nights you got to be at 6:30 to get a seat. All right? It's packed all over. And so I'm not going to delay it any longer. I want everybody in here to get on their feet and put their hands together and give a round welcome of applause to our brother all the way from Chicago, Steve Copeland. I'm going back there to take good care of that money. All right. Hotep. I'm proud to have the opportunity to share with you tonight. I'm going to do my best and do my fastest to get as much in as possible. Those circles are on the, I was telling brother, I started trying to show my stuff a little better. And I said, brother, can you get an overhead projector? He said, Steve, can I get an overhead projector, please? So we're going to try to show some things. Can you see that in the back? All right. The only reason I show those circles are because the circles represent the pursuit or the penetration of layers of the opposition. We have for a long time talked about circles within circles. We coming in all right? Y'all picking me up all right? We're talking about circles within circles, and this was from a Masonic book, and it showed layers of circles. And we need to understand that our goal is the penetration. In fact, it says the Kabbalistic scheme of the four worlds. And we're talking about that those circles represent something. I hate to stand in the chair, but I put that. This is the core of negativity. Who or whatever that is, that's who we're after. That's the Wizard of Oz. This circle of initiates Gotcha. This ring is the circle of initiates. It's not but three people in it. Not but three people. Rockefeller, Rothschild, Oppenheimer. Ain't but three people. And in this outer circle comes in the media, the think tanks, the government, education, law, labor, industry, oil, etc. A layer of industry. This is who they all serve. A point. The only way you can make a circle is to put, you remember you got the compass. You put the compass in. You then swing it. So the project is to penetrate the circles. There's nothing else going on. Nothing else going on. I just want to show that. Understand what the goal is. Like trying to take out blockers from a lineman. So we're pursuing in that direction. And we just want to keep that up tonight. I'm going to talk about a story that just, I believe, appeared in Newsday here recently, yesterday, maybe a week ago, that actually broke way back in February. We're going to talk a little bit about that story and the spying led by the Anti-Defamation League. I, too, a brother, am suspicious about Ben Shaver's appointment. From 1976 to 1980, I was on the board of the NAACP in Chicago. And how I got on the board was I busted in their offices with 13 people and jacked them up and accused them of stealing the money. So they went in the back room and had a big meeting and came out and said, "You're right." And myself and 55 other of my young friends went on into their organization, and for 4 years we established that, as Brother said, the organization was not built to make a change. There are 6 fundraisers that the organization has every year, and that's all it does is raise these funds for these 6 fundraisers. The Tag Day, the Freedom Fund Dinner, the Woman's Auxiliary Tea, the membership drive, the Life membership drive, and I'm probably forgetting one more, but that's all they do, and they spend their money raising the money. But what really makes me suspicious of Ben Shaver's role is where he is right now. You see, we have something called Operation Freeze Frame. I believe I was here back in July with the Concerned Brothers. We were here one Sunday. And this was after the riot. I know I got a couple of tapes and one video back there called The Riot Report. And the purpose of the report was to show the anti-riot machinery. The anti-riot machinery is backed up by the tanks, the airplanes, the U-2 spy satellites, the intelligence system, etc. But its front line are a group of preachers, social activists, community organizers. And I saw Ben Shaver on the news this morning in Los Angeles asking the people not to riot. And I'm baffled by this because I don't understand why we're so affirmative to save the white man from the one thing he's really afraid of, violence. So you may underestimate the role of kicking ass, but kicking ass do work. They do. So Operation Freeze Frame revolves around you fingering, identifying, profiling all the people that go out and say, "Please, no violence." Because I wonder who they're doing it for. I have not heard the bulk of the black community plead for someone to come out and rescue it from violence from its own people. It makes those pleas in different sorts of ways. They all go unanswered. I hear us pleading for better health care. Ain't nobody opening up no new hospitals. So it isn't like somebody's paying attention to what we're saying. So this brother has gone to L.A. Now, if you could work for the United Church of Christ with the big white Jesus, you have to be a traitor from the jump. Because the United Church of Christ spies with the Anti-Defamation League. And Ben Chavis, who I addressed in Washington over his support of anti-hate laws pushed by the Anti-Defamation League, told me with Andy Young's son-in-law, Brother Shelby, who's with the Episcopalians, that they did not know what it really meant. Well, I said, if you did not know what it really meant, why then did you push it forward? And of course, it's about cooperation. It's about assistance. It's about maintaining a job and a profile and access to certain things that will allow other people to appreciate your efforts. You watch how long it takes the smile to pull off of his face till they pull him in the room and tell him the score. Won't be long, and you will find that either he will quit by 6 months or he'll stay 16 years. It won't be anywhere in the middle. But this brother, by taking the position, has cursed himself because he has to bear witness to all that it represents. See, you ask when you get with it is, well, what did it do? Now, you may say what you're going to do. And everybody has this perception they're going to take someone else's house and redecorate it to their own liking. It's just not going to happen. But watch this anti-riot activity. You mentioned Brother Jesse Jackson. I walked in on him 2 days ago at Metropolitan AME Church in Washington, where he and some more preachers were setting up rumor control networks. Yeah, they were setting up a system to spot out any dialogue of potential violence in the verdict. But you know, Brother Matty Shot, I've been trying to figure out what's really to this white man, because you mean to tell me he would jeopardize, and last time there were 23 cities that went off. It wasn't just Los Angeles. They kicked ass in Atlanta. They kicked ass in Las Vegas, Nevada, Ames, Iowa, Madison, Wisconsin. Hey, it just wasn't L.A. It was Toronto, Canada. But they'd be willing to take all that hell for 4 white boys. I mean, to say all you have to do is find them guilty. Just give them back. You mean you ain't gonna give up 4 white boys? Besides, remember the formula. Convict Ollie North, wait the people out, overturn the conviction. The white boy, the Mexican boy, that Reno let off in Miami. Convict him, first found him not guilty, then convicted him, then overturned him. The people don't do shit. Wait on you. You won't hang 2 years for a white person's ass. You're too busy. So I wonder, in understanding what options they have available, why do they seek to confront us with 4 cheap honkies? You know what I mean? That's Stacey Coates. Anyway, but there's a flyer I hope to show you before the night is over from L.A. In fact, I can tell you what it says. It's kind of funny. It's got a cow sitting with 3 cowboys. And it says, the caption is, how cows turn into hamburger. And it says, the cow is sitting in the chair with the cowboys. It said, now tomorrow is going to be a small stampede. It said about 4 o'clock, 2, 3 of them going to try to slam through the meadows and get away. Don't forget, when we get to the slaughterhouse, not me. And it says, how cows become hamburger. Is that some other cows finger them. And the flyer said, don't snitch. The flyer said, don't snitch. Don't assist the white man in his role to find people who don't like him. Don't snitch. Just a little something for the back, nothing too drastic.
So we keep up on them and on that. I, too, humbly appreciate the station for having me on today, and I suggested that we be prepared to assist them in any sort of way when the shit starts, because something's going to start. But I know there were a couple of people that were here tonight that told me that they sent telegrams to them today just to let them know that they were backing them up. And I promised them, as they had requested of me, that they request of you to send the letter or the telegram, patting them on the back. Those letters have numerical values to them. Each letter may represent 55 listeners, so they may have 40 letters, and that may represent 2,000 people, or 200 people, whatever. So understand the value of the writing and why we want to let them know that we'll back them up. And you can see what it does. There are people in the hallway and back out that can't get in. And that's the power of what is available. Now, how is it somebody can have it every day? You know, they can have it every day and can't make it happen. They have it every day, all day. They can't make it happen. In Washington, D.C., is talk show going on all day. But in Washington, D.C., ain't no social action. In fact, the people so tired when they get through talking, they all worn out. They're just all tired and shit from listening to the radio. It's just like that football, that basketball. When the Knicks go off, y'all be so tightly gripping the thing and putting all your energy in it. When the shit is over, you swore you played the game. You just be real tight. And that's why it's so much of it on, to make sure that they work your bodies without actual motion. It's a new type of game. And it only works if we fall for it. We're going to talk a little bit about some things about the Boule. We're going to talk about that Memphis Commercial Register newspaper story. I ain't said shit. In between the time that I'm talking, I'm going to take a few names at a time and run back to you some of the latest lists of the Boule members in New York. We have gotten some more information that we'd like to share during the course of the evening, so be prepared and be on for that. I don't know, I guess it may have run here yesterday. Dinkins and Maynard Jackson and Sharon Pratt Kelly and others on the radio, the Negro Mayor Alliance. And they was just cheesing, and Donahue was back scratching them, and all, they was just real happy. And the reality is that they can't deliver. And I guess, are they still meeting here in New York? Any of them black mayors here tonight? So any of them here tonight? Here tonight. So ain't a mayor in town don't need to be here tonight. I'm just saying that where do they get those things that they should know? Where do they get them from? They don't. So that's why they do what they do. Whereas Dinkins mad at the police, they go knock on his door, call him a nigger. He gets real mad, hires a white police chief. I ain't figured it out. And maybe that's how this shit works. I don't know. That's pretty heavy to me, that this could come down in such a way, but that's reality. All right. We're going to do our best, brother. I have learned quite a bit lately about a particular subject that I was never much interested in, the Negro question. I immediately rushed on the field to assist our people by trying to finger the people who are the engineers of the New World Order that are alive and vibrant right now. Once we solidified that focus, we then start going backwards. We bumped into the Boule, we bumped into other layers, went through the Masons, went through layers of organizations that support the beast. Recently, when this story came out in Memphis about the spine in 1917, there was something that was revealed that I thought was awfully interesting. Didn't you all used to have a following mic? I guess I got to carry this one. There was some things in the story I thought were interesting. Did the story run in the New York Times? Do you know what the story is? You know what I'm talking about? I know the Final Call may have done something about the story. The ADL? What about them? Oh, there's several stories going on now. I want you to pick up on several stories. The ADL is one story. The ADL story is San Francisco, Los Angeles. The U.S. Army, the 8 Green Beret that were there with Martin Luther King in Memphis with the 30-06 rifles, which is what he was shot with. And that whole spy network that was set up from 1917, instituted by then Secretary of War Newton Baker. And I want to show you something because this is an excerpt of the story as it ran in Washington, D.C. They got the local paper to reprint the story. And right here, in this paragraph, can you see that? Well, I'll just tell you what it says. It says that Newton Baker, second paragraph over there with the line, third paragraph, the spy system that would question the loyalties of black Americans for generations began May 3rd, 1917. That day, Secretary of War Newton B. Baker ordered Von Dieman to crank up the department's sleepy military intelligence division. After declaring war on Germany, the United States needed an internal security network, and the Army would provide it. The Secret Service and the Justice Department, and the Infant Bureau of Investigation were too small or inexperienced to handle the large counter-espionage task. Von Dieman immediately set out to define which groups posed a serious threat to the country's security. And Von Dieman had a special assistant. Newton Baker, Secretary of War. Now, I only wish I had a stick. We got a stick around here? Some point up? Any of y'all done ripped off antennas off of cars or anything lately? Anyway, the point is, it says Newton Baker ordered. Newton Baker ordered. Now, who is Newton Baker? Then it says that Newton Baker had a special assistant. Says Baker's special assistant, Emmett Scott, wrote Von Dieman. So we know that Newton Baker had a special assistant, and his special assistant was a black man. Oh, you got it, brother. Show you right. Hey, brother, it's a little heavier than wood. Show you right. Start unscrewing the top. All right. Baker's special assistant, Emmett Scott. We're talking about 1917. A black man can't even pee in a white toilet. But you're now going to send these black men over to World War I, but at the same time you give them guns to go to the war, you're setting up a spy network to block them in. Now you see, Lieutenant Colonel Von Dieman created the Army's black network in 1917 based on being ordered. This is the only time you see Newton Baker's name in the whole story. All he did was order this man to set up the system. That was 1917. Said they went out and spied on Martin King's grandfather. Show you right. And what's so interesting is that Emmett Scott got his job on the recommendation of this man, Robert R. Moulton. Robert R. Moulton. Yes, Robert R. Moulton was the brother who allowed the Tuskegee experiment to kill the brothers. Oh, we're going to go deep tonight. Robert R. Moulton, Booker T. Washington's successor at Tuskegee Institute. Now, maybe y'all don't know how Booker T. Washington died. But Booker T. Washington got beat up right here in New York because a white man accused him of peeping in a pee hole looking at a white woman. And as jive as anybody may think Booker T. was, somebody had a need to kill him, and he died from the beating. And this guy, Moulton, replaces him. And Moulton goes on to get the Army to build a veterans hospital at Tuskegee Institute, saying that the black soldier, when they returned from war, had nowhere to go for medical treatment, so they put the hospital at Tuskegee. So yeah, nigga, I'll give you a hospital. And shot him full of syphilis. Now, Robert Moulton suggested that Emmett Scott should get his job. Now, I was looking up, and now I got a name-based system, so every time a name shows up, I go get my books, and I put the name in the book. Cross-reference the name against the other names and try to find out who is with who. Now, this guy is the same as, let me see here, how can I do this? I'll put his name right there and put his face right there. Can you see that? All right? Says here, Emmett Scott. Says here, Emmett Scott, this thing kind of slowed my motion down a little bit, but I want to show it. Emmett Scott, 11th Grandsire Archon, Boule. The Grandsire Archon is the man of man. He the big daddy. Now, he got that position in 41 to 46. But when you look to the founding of the Washington, D.C. Boule and its early members in 1912, which the list is I have up here, you see that Emmett Scott is a member of the Epsilon Boule of Washington, D.C. So now we're talking about the Secretary of War getting one black man to work with him. The one black man happens to be a part of a network, an organized attempt to build a Negro who would have an investment in the system to pretend to the other Negroes that if you behave, be good, and do what we say, that advancement is guaranteed. It's called the American dream. And so we see a series of things that would assist us in trying to figure out how this network has worked against us. I want to show this little segment from the Memphis article. You can see how I read things. I think I might could clear this up a little bit. You might not be able to see that, but I'll tell you what it says. In the story, it says that in the process of setting up this spy system, Von Demand wanted proof of subversion. He hired Joel E. Spingard, the white board chairman of the NAACP, and made him a major in military intelligence division of the U.S. Army, May 1918. He was not a private, a corporal, a sergeant, a lieutenant, but on sight they swore him in and made him a major. He went from 0 to major. But look at what it says. The documents show Spingard, who remained NAACP chairman during his tenure at MID, that's Military Intelligence Division. That's of the U.S. Army. There's no CIA then. FBI, J. Edgar Hoover ain't in his spot yet. That bitch. Out in ladies' clothes and shit. Wasn't that something, boy? We've been contained by pathological, and I don't even want to use the word. It says the documents show Spingard, who remained NAACP chairman during his tenure at MID, used his post to obtain critical information for MID, such as a list of the organization's 32,000 members. Now, the first thing Ben Chavis must do as head of the Negro Association is repudiate Spingard's adverse impact on the black community, remove his name from their highest medal, the Spingard Medal, and do it in 30 days, nigga, else you are with him. You got 30 days, brother, 30 days. Now, Ben Hooks, in the follow-up to this story, stated that the files should not be revealed publicly to protect the depth of the informant networks, which means that there's more to the story. Now, the New York Times ain't done this story because the New York Times has been a long supporter of Spingard. Sulzberger, sure you're right. So we're talking about the major, largest newspaper in the world won't do a story that ran 6 full pages in the Memphis Commercial Register, a conservative white newspaper. As Brother brought to my lecture last night, the 1886 edition shows it was owned by Albert Pike. Now, here comes the Memphis Commercial Register, now owned by Scripps Howard Newspaper Alliance, and now they run this story. Just out the sky blue. What else does the story say? It says that Von de Man's assistant was Clyde Tolson, who was Edgar Hoover's bitch. It says Tolson left the War Department in 1928 to join the FBI. He became Hoover's #2 man by 47, which he remained until Hoover's death in 72. Many of Hoover's scholars believe Tolson and his boss were lovers. It says Tolson for 40 years would keep close contact with the Army intelligence. Close contact. See, this may be deeper than we were thinking. Yeah. 69 in Yeah, okay. Now, let's look at this. Let's see what else is in here. Let me turn this over. Okay, this is a later version of the story. I just jumped to it since it's here. I don't want to bring this back up. You might not be able to see it well. That's this section right here. It says, this is now talking about in the 60s. We'll just jump up a second. It says here that meanwhile the Army had finished its intelligence outlines on 124 cities with the potential for violence that summer. The outlines included maps with all sensitive areas marked, landing, let me read it here, I'm underlining too strong for this. Landing, let's see what it says here. Sensitive areas marked, landing zones, secret storage sites for riot gear, and weapons and files on all civic leaders and known troublemakers. Details of those plans were kept secret from civilian law enforcement agencies for fear of leaks. Still, at least the Army felt better prepared for King. Well, what has Colin Powell been doing with the information? This comes from a newspaper, not from him. Now, you would think a black man would clean house when he took over. Anyway, that's just another thought. And of course, we know he can't do it. That's right. Okay. Says here that Robert Moulton got somebody else involved in the story. Says up here he got a guy named Dr. C.V. Roman. Now, these are historic names. You can look these names up. Here's a book called The Negro in Our History by Carter G. Woodson and Charles Wesley, who wrote the history book for the Sigma Pi Phi, the Boule. He wrote the history book for the Prince Hall Masons, the history book for Alpha Phi Alpha, history book for the Black Elks, Charles Wesley, big-time historian. But their profiles, you see, this must become an active project. Once we open up the story, I've never been versed in the Negro question. I bought a lot of books and things I'm going to show you, things I didn't understand. I didn't know Marcus Garvey had 7 chapters in South Africa. I didn't know that the head of South Africa banned Marcus Garvey's newspaper in the diamond fields, blaming him for raising the aspirations of the Kaffers. Oh, this is deeper than we think. And we know that Elaine Locke, the first Black Rhodes Scholar, Du Bois, Emmett Scott, and the others sought to compromise Garvey's advancement. Meanwhile, the white man was using them to set up a spy network to watch the other blacks. That's right, they went after Garvey, brother. We owe them for this. Robert Moulton, Booker T. Washington's successor at Tuskegee, came aboard, as did C.V. Ronan. It then says they got help from a man named Robert R. Church of Memphis, Tennessee. Now remember these names, Ronan, R-O-M-A-N, C.V. Ronan, Dr. C.V. Ronan. Also remember the name of Robert R. Moulton. Also remember this name of Robert Church, who I just sat down with a brother from Memphis yesterday, and he told me that Robert Church was the first black millionaire in America. And that Robert Church saved the city of Memphis. Anybody here from Memphis? Anybody from Memphis would tell you that Church Street and Church Park and Church School are all symbols honoring the black man that saved the city from an epidemic of yellow fever in the late 1800s when it was going bankrupt. And this black man has a son named Robert Church, a daughter named Roberta Church, and another daughter named Mary Church Terrell. See, she's kitchen up. She hung out with Eleanor Roosevelt and this other crowd. Now, I ain't too good with the Negro stuff, y'all. Y'all understand? This is information. I'm now talking to you where I am. I'm on this investigation. I'm hunting down these connections, laying the framework for the indictments of the Boule as an organization. And this spy story unfolded, and the story has allowed us to be able to trace the members through the story. The story had an adverse impact on the community. So we're in the discovery process. So now remember the name. Somebody say something? Okay, we all right? Let's see here. Okay, we'll hold that one once that's the Army's find. We want to go back, see if we can find some of these old boys. Somebody say something about Spingard? Huh? The date of the register story is, to be exact, let's see here. I got the full story right here. Yeah, there we go. Sunday, March 21st. 1993, brother. Just back with you. All right. Now let's go. We know we be talking about the CFR, the Council on Foreign Relations, and all them networks. Now we're coming up with looking into this network. This is the 70-year anniversary issue of Foreign Affairs. Talks about some of the earlier foreign affairs activities, 1922. Talking about individuals, but when we come right over here, find a picture of this guy, the only black man in the Council on Foreign Relations book. W.B. Du Bois, who wrote on the role of racism, the color line, in the origins of the First World War and its legacy in international relations. But what I want you to key to is that it's Du Bois on the First World War. Emmett Scott, Special Assistant on the First World War. Robert Moulton, Special Assistant on the First World War. These Negroes at that moment in time were excessively important to the white man. Now let's go to this book here called The Negro in the Making of America by Benjamin Qualls. Just happened to have this on the bookshelf. Sister had this book from one of her classes at Howard, and I looked up Emmett Scott's name in the book. Let's see what I can find about Emmett Scott. In fact, Emmett Scott is the father of Horace Scott, who is the father of Elaine Brown. That shit started coming together. Says here, just a little sidebar, it doesn't make her, she didn't do this. Might be some old files around that she could pull out. We won't be ashamed of asking for. Says here on page 184 of The Negro in the Making of America, it says the following. It says, did the Negro officer and combat soldier maintain high morale despite many evidences of color discrimination? Such a question admits no ready answer. Undoubtedly, thousands of Negro soldiers were bitter about their treatment, and hundreds sent complaining letters to Secretary of War Newton D. Baker, and after, on October 5th, 1917, to Emmett J. Scott, who had been appointed as his special assistant in matters affecting all Negroes. In matters affecting all Negroes. In other words, we're looking at a Boule man being assigned the responsibility to assure cooperation and passivity from the other Negroes in the war, who don't even have the right to ride a bus or pee in a toilet. But you gave them a gun and you sent them overseas because you need backup. So now you got to pick this Negro very carefully. You can't just get any Negro to stand over complaints, because a good processor of complaints, in fact, exposed the depth of the operation. We never heard from Emmett Scott about the spy story, or from Moulton, or from Church, or from Ronan. We never heard from them. And we hearing it now from a white guy. It says that his job was to catalog or specify the complaints that have come to the War Department regarding the Negro, which Scott admitted would be an endless task. Says that the Negro, 2/3 of the Negroes were not in potential fighting forces. They were in auxiliary services. It also says this on page 188. It says the national government took a few steps to boost the Negro morale. Emmett Scott's appointment as Special Assistant to Secretary of War meant to ally unrest among the Negroes. At the time of his appointment, Scott was Secretary of Tuskegee Institute and had in 1909 been a member of the American Commission to Liberia. Now, you got to go back. Marcus Garvey is going to Liberia and kicking ass. He decides that he's going to take Africa by getting his base over here, and he's going to Liberia, and he's going to move all down through Africa. But now you got another group of Negroes hooked with the Freemasons that left here and went over there to form a free state, but actually to start American colonial activity. You see, those guys that went over there agreed to be colonists for America. They went to take the country, not to be free black men in a free country. But this is important because history has screwed some of these roads so that the tracks are not clear. We're now trying to lay the depth of a premise for a challenge to a group of people, like Vernon Jordan and Mr. Lee Andrew Archer, and Dr. Bruce Lane Ballard, and Dr. Lloyd Thomas Barnes, and Mr. Earl J. Benjamin, and Dr. Garvey H. Booker, and John B. Branch, and Dr. George C. Branch Jr., and Dr. Samuel Chester Brisbane, among others. So we want to lay the premise on them. Ron Brown has been assigned by Clinton to be the nigger in charge of the riots. He's been told to use whatever he can do to prevent a riot. He a Boule too. So it would seem to fit that the Boule was stopping the War of 17 and trying to stop the War of 93. Anytime it's thought that we may go to do something, a certain network of blacks get the assignment. Ben Hooks might be, Ben Hooks was in the Boule. Roy Wilkins was in the Boule. Ben Chavis going to be in the Boule too? Show you right. Now, let's go back. It says here in this book, and I'm doing this to get these into the record. It says that Scott proved to be a hard worker with administrative ability, though as a former confidential secretary of Booker T. Washington, he was given to seeing the sunny sides of things. After visiting an army camp, he generally reported that the men were enthusiastic and overjoyed, even though he knew it was not true. So what was he doing? He was trying to convince Newton Baker that the nigger in the war was okay. But who is Newton Baker? How did this came up? In a book I had called The Imperial Brain Trust by Shroop and Mentor. The Council on Foreign Relations and U.S. Foreign Policy, put out by Monthly Review Press, New York and London. Lawrence Shroop and William Mentor. You probably never find the book. Very important book. This was their doctor's thesis at Northwestern University. Oh, it was written in 77. Okay. In fact, it says the Monthly Review Press is at 62 West 14th Street in New York. So if it's still there, maybe you might find it. And on page 21, I looked up Newton Baker in the index. It had no listing of Newton Baker's name. But sometimes when you're really on the tracks of something, they might not list the name because they don't want to give the association. But on page 21 it says that several important publications were stimulated by the Council on Foreign Relations staff and published by the Council, but were not products of the study group. The aim of these books was to influence the thinking of the attentive public. 3 examples were Herbert Feiss's Europe, the World's Banker, and accounts by Newton D. Baker of the United States entry into World War I, and by Henry Stimson about his role in the military in the early 1930s. So Newton D. Baker can be traced to an organizational network. And what I offered to you before is that Newton Baker is traced to the same network that Du Bois was, Foreign Affairs. Now remember, when we talk about the CFR, and we've done it every time I've been here, this is in that outer circle. In fact, I would put the CFR here, between the outer circle and the inner circle, around here. So Newton Baker, W.B. Du Bois, Emmett Scott, Moulton are assisting this layer like a moat before the castle. These are the alligators in the water who are supposed to keep you from crossing. All right? So we can trace Newton Baker to a network. That's just for one page. That's all he got is one page. Says furthermore, the last moral building appointment by the government was that of Robert Russa Moulton, the successor of Booker T. Washington at Tuskegee, who was to go to France and speak to the Negro troops. Moulton had the ear of the Wilson administration. It was upon his recommendation that Scott got his appointment. In April 1918, Moulton headed a committee of Negroes who visited the White House on behalf of Liberia. The fruitful call resulted in a $5 million loan to Liberia in 1918. Hey, Reverend Valentine, seen you last night in Washington, D.C. at my lecture, speaking. Exciting audience and shit. Show you right. All right. So it mentions that Moulton headed a committee that went to President Wilson. Wilson is the first president ever to leave the United States. First junket abroad ever in 1918. Nobody ever left because they had all been isolationists. No British connection, no French connection. Now the reason I'm making this, I want you to understand. You got a group of white boys, Washington, Franklin, and others, who stole the country, pretended to break away from a group of guys, but were in a Masonic organization sanctioned by the guys back at the mothership. French Lodge, British Lodge. Break away. The breakaway was to start a New World Order, but as soon as they had stole the New World, they started the reconstruction of relationship. With me? So now how do you trick America, who's an isolationist, to go help Britain and to go help France when somebody messed with them? The German. So now you start this process of assimilation into linking the destinies. What happened in 1913 Jekyll Island? Federal Reserve, which means the Paul Warburg and the James Warburg and the other connections, the Rockefellers, etc., who were involved in the building of the central banking system were linking the money of America up with the Central Bank of Britain, Italy, France, etc. Now, before you can defend a war, you got to link money. See, the G7 links money now. G7. How do they pick G and 7? Those are not arbitrary numbers. And this, every time someone says something international, I got to check with the G7, which must be somewhere in here. G7. G is a 7. And what's in the middle of that Masonic thing? What's the 7th letter of the alphabet? Shit. I don't understand it. So you're right. Now, let's go. Okay. Here we go. Now here comes Marcus Garvey. 1 million people. No radio, no TV. Marcus Garvey got more international affiliates than the U.S. government. Got to check it out. Check it out. Marcus is international move. Remember, the U.S. government was not international. Only certain businesses were. Okay? Now, we got to now link destiny. We got to now unify. Now, remember, Clinton is a Rhodes Scholar. When he won the election, Oxford flew the American flag. That was the culmination of the bringing home of the link-up. Stephanopoulos, Rhodes Scholar, Woosley, CIA, Rhodes Scholar, and Stearns, FBI in waiting, Rhodes Scholar. Just might not mean nothing. other than the fact that Cecil Rhodes ranked next to Adolf Hitler. That's all it mean to me. And I ain't never heard none of them Negroes compel Clinton to give his version about why did he sleep with people. He slept with everybody else. I guess that wasn't no big question. He was a hole when you elected him. And remember, he would have never won unless they had threatened P. Rock's daughter. He would have never won unless they had threatened P. Rock's daughter. Don't forget that. Y'all that got hope when he got elected. That dope for the white man. Hope. For shit that never comes about. Now, Marcus Garvey is making a strong move in Liberia. Marcus Garvey is making a strong move in Liberia. Get the book by Tony Martin, who is being attacked right now, in case you don't know, for asking his students at Wesley College to use the secret relationship between blacks and Jews in the curriculum. The first professor to make it mandatory for a student about a book. And he's being attacked right now. Y'all know the story? Y'all got to defend him. Y'all got to defend him. The brother is being attacked. They have assault. The president of the school has repudiated him. The head of his department, Tony Martin, who wrote these books on Marcus Garvey. Tony Martin wrote Race First. Tony Martin, Pan-African Connection. This brother brought the information on Garvey to the forefront. But he's being attacked right now. He's a professor at a college. What's this? Wesley College. Where's that at? We need to help this brother. He's being attacked right now for putting that book in the curriculum. And everybody who is a part of the secret relationship between blacks and Jews should rush to his defense, no more than I stand to defend the radio station that put me on. Who else would put you on if you don't defend them when they seek your relationships? Now, Tony Martin does an excellent job of exposing the enemies of Marcus Garvey. In this book by Marcus Garvey and the Visions of Africa, edited with an introduction and commentary by John Henry Clark, with the assistance of Amy Garvey, it has on page 98 a letter that the NAACP printed in its news magazine from the president of Liberia, which said, the NAACP printed a letter from the president of Liberia to the effect that his country would not be used as a base from which the Garvey movement could harass other governments in Africa. Now, what I'm saying is that the president of Liberia called America and said, if you don't give me some money, this is what the Negro element do. Look, what you want me to cool the niggas out, give me something to work with. That's where the grant, the 2-3 jobs, the Rainbow Coalition, all that shit come from. They shaking down baseball now. And look, they gonna make forever Willie Randolph kiss their ass too, because he just got the first job. He's right here in New York. With that bastard Steinbrenner, whatever his name is, owned the Yankees, who got convicted and privately wiped away all his charges. Who fronted Winfield. Oh, y'all seen some of y'all at the game. Now, so these Negroes, Moulton and Scott, get Wilson to put up $5 million to block Marcus Garvey. $5 million in 1917 money. That shit like $100 million today. U.S. government said, we'll give them the $5 million, but we got to approve every penny of it being sold. Even got Firestone, who was the dominant American exploiter of rubber, etc., to kick in a few dollars to help along as well to make sure nobody fuck with their corporation over in Liberia. This was the beginning of a hub of a whole use of exploitation. Now, so we're looking at this element who assisted the white man's spy. We're in a nationwide network to stop black liberation. And only thing they all have in common is that they were advisors to the king. Boule. That's all they got in common. There's no other thread that unites them all. The Big Six, as Malcolm called them, didn't know they were organized, though he felt their organization. He gave them a concept of unity, but they had one bigger than he thought. But he was on it. Marcus Garvey was on their ass. He knew it. Marcus Garvey attacked British imperialism. Who was that? Cecil Rhodes, Jan Smuts, Lord Rothschild. He put the heat right on the ones we're still chasing today. In fact, we have a Boule breakaway. See, I noticed, brother, when I was studying the Boule, that certain Boule at a different time in their life jumped up and decided to reach their arm out to Africa. Like that woman there reaching and pointing at Africa on that picture. But the Boule are confined to domestic activity. Sure, you're right. So when Martin King said, hey, let's go to the war, the other Boule and preachers, etc., said, Martin, don't do that shit. They told him. And if you remember the Eye on the Prize, you got Martin and Stokely Carmichael walking together. The microphone goes to Martin. Say, what do you think about this demonstration? What you going to do when the white man show up? He said, well, I'm going to turn my other cheek. I'm going to say a prayer. They said, well, Mr. Carmichael, what do you think? He said, no, I'm not thinking like Martin King. I'm going to fight. But the thing was, they were standing next to each other. You see, after a while, the threat became not that Martin was so aggressive, but that Martin was standing around aggressive people. And that there was a tendency for Martin's dialogue to change. You see, in this spy story, it says that Martin King was accused of sparking violence. But Martin never was for the violence. But they knew that Martin brought enough people that his presence with right chemistry could produce violence as the end product. So the fear was not that he was violent. See, white man dealing of potential. This is how the spy thing works. You heard brother say earlier about how they watch what you talk, how you talk, what you say, how you look, how you stand, confident, inconfident, shaky, scared, fearful, punkish. That's right. So, but they have a formula. The formula is intentions plus capability equal threat. Intentions plus capability equal threat. Free Mandela, intention, capability, got no plane ticket, threat, 0. You with me? You understand? No, that's how it works. There's a tape back there called Spy System, and there's another tape back there called How the Intelligence Community Monitors Networks and Groups. And there's formulas in there. For example, if I'm person A, the speaker, and you're C, D, E, F, and G, how do I reach you directly? No. I reach you through person B. Who's more important here? Person A with the information, people C with the desire for it, or person B, the one that links us together? You with me? So you understand that the role, when brother steps up here and spends a few moments setting someone up for the right to slam the ball in the hoop, his assist makes it happen. I can't slam it if he don't pass it. So in the scheme of things, the one that will bring the ones has a higher point value of threat than the one who may do the thing. You with me? Check into them spots. How the intelligence community monitors networks and groups. There's about 8 of them back there and about 5 or 6 Spy System 2000. Just some work I did trying to prepare us for dealing with the early warning officer, the guy that sits behind the scenes that we never see, that collects all the informant's information and comes out with a predictability scale about when to strike. And these are based on formulas. So we tell them we go into the Diamond District on Monday and they stand out there waiting for us and we don't show. They tell we going on Tuesday, they standing out there waiting for us, paying overtime and shit, and we don't show. On the day we really gonna go, they in such trouble for ordering up extra workers and overtime that when they looked at the same information, they hesitated, and we went and kicked their ass scot-free. Just a little thought, no, not for applause, but I just want you to think. These people are there. You must think how to get past the tripwire. Check? Remember, the white people fled New York not because you kicked their ass, but on the rumor you were coming. Check? All right. Okay, now, let's go back. Right? All right. Now, Garvey is being stopped in Liberia. And the president of Liberia comes out and says, no, not me. I won't be the base for this brother. This book here, the Pan-African Connection from Slavery to Garvey and Beyond, has some excellent moments that deal with, in fact, the chapter is entitled Marcus Garvey and Southern Africa. The reason I picked Southern Africa is because all three, Oppenheimer, Rothschild, and Rockefeller, can find unity in South Africa. Still today, they are the three gatekeepers of its destiny. It ain't de Klerk, nor Mandela. You see, as an attorney in 1960, practicing apartheid law. See, if you agree to practice apartheid law, you have to be into apartheid. When they say, well, we ruled, the nigga ain't getting out of jail, then the nigga don't get out of jail regardless of the facts. So, now this is very important. This is the threat that this have a little want some more crowd represents, because Mandela has put a coalition together with the enemy to come out with 60% of the vote to usurp the PAC and the other revolutionaries on the set. He's going to take the enemy and his group and form a coalition and link their destinies together forever. One cannot win without the other. If the ANC bucks on the whites, then the whites and the ANC lose and others win. So they're linked together forever. The whites still doing the killing. The blacks still don't have the guns. Mandela out of jail. He the freest nigga in Africa. Only. And having waited for him 27 years, he cut sister to enhance his relationship with the white boy who hated and jacked his sister up every day she stood up to defend his name. Deep, 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 deep. And every time he comes, he carried 10 million on home with him. How come the United African Movement don't have 10 million? And you know what? I looked up the word Mandela in a dictionary of symbols and found out that Mandela was something that was carved in the rocks of what used to be called Rhodesia, Zimbabwe. This was carved into the caves. Mandelas were an integral, elaborate scheme, a labyrinth, which compels opposing forces to a center or a point. A Mandela has a specific meaning that means that you take the worst and the best and merge into a central unit in spite of the differences. The Mandela is a thing. You got to look the word up. That's not what we're talking about now, but right. The name means as much as what he's done. You just right. You check that. It says here in this chapter on Marcus Garvey in South Africa, it says here that the British, and I want to read it directly just to get the quote in correctly, because again, these are the forces. The forces of these oppositions have remained unified and the same. It was the Rockefellers in 76 that put up the first 40 million after the Charlottesville massacre to support the government because it was on the brink of financial deprivation. It was the Chase Bank that did it. It says that the British Foreign Office records, it's page 145, the British Foreign Office records contain certain references to files now officially destroyed, which contain information on the UNIA that the Foreign Office passed on to the South African government. The UNIA leader, Reverend J.W.H. Eason, in 1921 referred to the British Parliament proceedings in which a member of Parliament complained that a black West Indian named Garvey was making the black South Africans too smart. His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, also sent his aristocratic prestige to the struggle against Garveyism during a South African tour. In the words of the Sunday Times of South Africa, White, the prince, quote, warned the Bantu races to beware of the tendencies to mistrust those in authority or to turn to those whose smooth promises have yet to be translated into performance. The cause of all this upset was the ANC's African World, which fumed the Sunday Times and had barefaced improvements to refer to the imperishable message of His Highness Marcus Garvey. It even went on to say that the ANC's choice of black, gold, and green, black, gold, and green, were a result of trying to duplicate Marcus Garvey's black and gold, which is the whole history of Marcus Garvey, UNIA, and the ANC I was unaware of. It says that also that the whites said that every well-informed native, this is the Prince of Wales, every well-informed native knows Marcus Garvey to be an unprincipled rogue and swindler. Prime Minister J.C. Smuts of South Africa in 23 admitted that the UNIA was, quote, carefully watched. And since it didn't have whites at the meeting, it had to be watched by who? Though he seemed to be confident of his ability to contain it. Garvey, at his 1924 International Convention in Harlem, reported, however, that Smuts had petitioned the British government to keep the Negro world out of certain parts of Africa. By 1927, the paper was banned. The paper was reported banned in the diamond fields of Kimberley and in the Rand area. The government was also by then tampering with UNIA mail. In fact, the U.S. Postal Service refused to mail out the Negro world when Marcus Garvey condemned British imperialism, June 14, 1919. Just the suggestion is that those people we've always been after set up an alliance to get them a Negro who would assist them in blocking this African liberation movement. Now, this African liberation movement, here's a book that you should never buy called Bridges and Boundaries. It's put out by the Jewish Museum of New York. The Jewish Museum, where is that located? It says the Jewish Museum is under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. This is Bridges and Boundaries. It's a book that contains one chapter is a condemnation of myself, reprinting a Esquire magazine article of May of 1989 written by Taylor Branch. But in the beginning of this book, in fact, the book is put out since it's an anti-Coakley book. It says here that it was, dig this, it says it was to Joel, let me read it. I didn't even see this part. It says here that later, on whom they were joined by others, this is a foreword written by Ben Hooks. It says here that later on they were joined by others, including two brothers, Arthur and Joel Spingard, both of whom devoted themselves to the cause of black equity. It was to Joel Spingard that W.B. Du Bois dedicated his autobiography in 1940. Yeah, this thing is coming together. Now, let's go. Let's go to the founding of the NAACP. It's in this chapter by David Levering Lewis. Brother mentioned he was going to talk about this. And I don't mean to use your presentation. It's just something I want to say that has an important connection to it. That when the NAACP was founded, the Urban League was founded, this was a white thing. Okay? Now, these were the people who were around when NAACP was founded. A white woman named Jane Addams. Jane Addams, and you can check it back in the old Steve Coakley slave tapes when I was talking about community intelligence spying. I talked to you about the origin of social work and about the University of Chicago and about the settlement house movement, the first settlement house, which was started in America by Jane Addams in Chicago. The second one was right here in New York, the Henry Street Center or whatever. Now this, Jane Addams studied at Toynbee Hall in England. Arnold Toynbee, this is a research. Arnold Toynbee, John Ruskin, Cecil Rhodes, study them together. You will find this last leg of imperialism, on the move, implementation. Jane Addams studied it at Toynbee Hall, whose goal was to infiltrate the poor to assure that they aspire through the tentacles of the rich, which is what the NAACP and the Urban League did. They, in fact, set themselves up to make the poor aspire or ventilate through them so they could decide who the fuck they wanted to help and when they wanted to help them. That was their decision, the whites. That's what you call founders' rights. So we know Jane Addams then went to the University of Chicago and with Rockefeller instigated the starting of the social work, and the first school of social work was University of Chicago, which is Rockefeller School. He run it like he run New York. Your man Barry Sullivan, who I mentioned to you from this stage, in fact, I think I did it when I did the Concerned Brothers one. Barry Sullivan is your chief financial officer, deputy mayor under Dinkins, and that's the one that's going to put the vendors. It's Barry Sullivan who's handling the vendor problem in New York that's going to put the poor black man off the streets. It's Barry Sullivan that killed First Chicago and bankrupted damn near. And he come here and got promoted to mayor assistant. It's Barry Sullivan that sits on the Trilateral Commission. Barry Sullivan, who was the senior vice president at Chase before he went to the Chase's sub-bank, First Chicago, as chairman until he come back here to New York as deputy mayor. And Dickens admits it's his main man. He got a white police chief and a white finance man and a Boule connection. All right. Now, who else was there at the founding of the NAACP? You also got a guy named Seligman. Seligman. You ever heard of that word? This is a Jewish family. Look up the book Our Crowd by Stephen Bingham. It's a whole list of those German Jewish people. Remember, we listened to the point. When we get down to the point, this might be what we find. That might be what we find when we get down to it. Yeah, we might find that when we get down to it. That's what might be the answer to their bestiality. But interestingly enough, just as a sidelight, it says right here, this is a book on Roman symbolism. How much y'all pay to get in here? Shit. Just a little sidelight. It says, what is Romulus and Remus? It says, it's a neat way of accounting for a arrival of a new force lacking background or family. Now, I'm going to read that again. It is a neat way of accounting for the arrival of a new force lacking background or family. This is the nurturing of the dawning of the white man, and it's being brought on by an animal. I can't drink frog milk. That might be what we find. Get to the point. You got the point? All right, that's just a little sidelight there. I didn't want to forget them. Now, okay. Now, so you got Julius Rosenwald hanging around NAACP. Says he made significant contributions to the Urban League. During the first years of both civil rights organizations, however, not only did the WASP influence prevail, but there was also no discernible Jewish inclination to play a larger role. See, it says that in the very beginning of the dawning of the making of the Negro, the Carnegies, the Spelman Rockefeller, the Pew Foundation, and the Astors, etc., they brought on the Negro. When you get this book by Charles Wesley, you will find huge identifications of the 6,900 schools that the General Education Fund of the Rockefeller family, public schools that they financed the building of. teachers whose salaries they paid, curriculums whose books they bought, to start grooming the slave Negro into the system of education. The system of education was established by this group, the Order of Skull and Bones. Now, this is what's important, because it was that group that decided what the role of education would be. You see, one of the people who was at that meeting was a guy named John Dewey. He helped found the NAACP. But you got to know that John Dewey was in the Order of Skull and Bones, the group that the Boule says it seeks to emulate on page 28 of its history book. Now, the point to that is anybody that would want to emulate such activity as this needs to know that the skull and crossbones is a symbolism for death. So what we're talking about is an overlapping strategy of people who have a linking desire to emulate negative things. Now, this skull and bones ran by a name called the Order. And the Order had, this is from their book, see, and the Order had an impact. They penetrated certain segments of the society. Remember, I was talking about those circles. And here are these industry things in the outline of the circles. But the point of it is, it's a representation of a penetration. Now, this group of black men seek to emulate these guys who started in 1832. Look at this, New York Times, November 4th, 1988. What does it say? The tomb. Didn't say the church. Didn't say the heaven. Didn't say the vehicle. It says the tomb. See, that's the date it appears, November 4th, 88. New York Times. Now, the only point I'm trying to make here is that John Dewey, who is revealed in the book, The Order, must have fell off. Where'd it go? I took it down. It's in the front. Right, okay. It's in this book, which is symbolized by a web, a spider web. And a spider web is keyed on the point and the surrounding network. It's a symbolism, similar symbolism. Anyway, oh, they love it. The skull and bones is the warlord voice, and that's back to the symbolism of the circle within the circle. Now, remember that when these guys got going, this is Henry Minton, the founder of the Boule, who states right here, in summary, Minton wanted to create an organization which would partake, in his own words, of, quote, the tenets of Skull and Bones at Yale. It's from the History of Sigma Pi Phi by Charles Wesley. See, he was the first grandsire archon. That's the Big Daddy's name. But Minton, what did he know about Skull and Bones at Yale in 1900? Seeing that we know more about it now than ever before. There was no book like this. There was no story in the New York Times in 1890. So what did he know about it that made him want to build a group of black men to set it up? Now remember, these group of black men were the first of the Greek fraternities. Now, this is something I just come to understand. I didn't always know this. Let me tell you what I come to know. You see that in the past, I had always raised questions about the Greek thing. And I don't know a lot about the Greek thing because I ain't into the Greek thing. And I always said that, well, you alphas and kalphas and all of y'all okay, but it's the Boule I'm really after. Until I studied the symbolism related to the Boule and what actually, that's right, they're the same thing. What I didn't know, it was a package deal. Okay, now let me move something around here. We got to get a flat podium. Now, I want to show you something. Now, two things I got to show you. This gets deep. Y'all with me? Okay. Okay, now, watch this. Watch this. This is the logo. This is the logo of the Boule. It's called a Grecian Sphinx. Now, Grecian Sphinx is an interesting word because Brother George James in Stolen Legacy clarified the Greeks ain't never done shit but steal and claim. Appreciate you, brother. And our responsibility to the brother's 1950 related book is to defend his name and his honor because he was murdered mysteriously. He was murdered mysteriously, Masonically murdered. That's right. You got to understand that. I was talking to Dick Gregory the other night. We were talking about ritual murders. Now check out what I found in the Secret Destiny of All Ages book by Manly Palmer Hall, who wrote over 2,000 Masonic books. Look what I find in the portion of initiation of the pyramid. Look at that. Look at that. And look at that. Now, in there, which we now have the Constitution of Sigma Pi Phi, we find an organized attempt to describe the logo, which is called a Grecian Sphinx. And brother used the word griffin. I want to show it to you. Show you what a griffin looks like. See, we on the trail now. We got to go through the symbols. Check. All right, the griffin, the mythical bird, the Grecian Sphinx, and the Masonic Grecian Sphinx. Right? Now check this out. Yeah, that's hard to keep up there, but it keeps rolling down. It says the Egyptian Sphinx is closely related to the Greek legend of Oedipus. Now, see, what it's saying is that it was an Egyptian Sphinx, but the Greeks changed it to a Grecian Sphinx, but the Grecian Sphinx is linked to the symbolism of Oedipus. Who did what? Killed his mother. Who gave birth to all the people? Oh, come on now, let me hear you. Who gave birth to all the people? From Lucy. White man come up with a white girl name, but we know what Lucy was. So now we got the whites trying to kill their mothers and their father. Check. Now I can't say that the white man came from us. Because that cave-dwelling rat, mouse, dog, human-eating animal from the mud pies of the Caucasian mountains, I never saw even a gorilla eat the meat that he ate. Now, that's another discussion. But what it says, thanks, brother. What it says in this area about the Grecian Sphinx is it says it is a mythical, it says it's the first solved the riddle of the Sphinx, perpetrated by the mystery creature, which as the body of a winged lion, the head of a woman, and which frequented the highway leading to Thebes, which was what? And what was that? What was it? Huh? It was the high holiest of places. It was what the priesthood. Thank you. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. Thank you. Now, that means that the Sphinx is the to what? Of evil. Listen to me now. You hear me? Did you hear me? I'm going to say it again. I said that, see, why is it facing that way? Right. Right. Now, the important thing is, this is supposed to gatekeep the high holy place. But since we know they ain't talking about the creator or spiritualism, in fact, they are the gatekeeper to the evil one. You with me? Let's go back. They're gatekeeping to the evil ones, keeping you from here, keeping you from here, gatekeeping to the evil. But it also says that if you figure out the riddle to the Sphinx, then the Sphinx is compelled to destroy itself. If you figure out the riddle to the gatekeeper of the evil, because see what we do here, what my role is, and the Rhodes Rothschild stuff, the Rhodes Scholar stuff, the secret society stuff, is to expose the elements that have remained hidden, which is what the Boule does. You ask the Boule about something, they will not tell you about who it is that's in control of all of the world, but they know. Now, so many to the left, so many to the right, so many to the left, unlock the key to the role of the Boule guarding the evil one. And it says right here, it says the Sphinx is therefore a mystery of nature. I can barely read this part. I'll read it from here. It says here, discovering one who knew the answer to her riddle, the Sphinx cast herself from the cliff, which bordered the road and perished. In other words, if your role is to protect the invisible man, and we make that man visible, your role... You with me? You understand? Check. So as we keep penetrating these layers of the opposition, we're rendering their role impotent. Because if they can't keep them secret, then they can't protect them, because now we all know who they are, though they never told us. All right? Yes? Now here comes the key to the riddle. When one was asked, had something to do with the number 9. The key to the riddle, when one is asked, has something to do with the number 9. It says that the mystery creature with the body of the winged lion and the head of the woman, which frequented the highway leading to Thebes. To each who passed her lair, the Sphinx addressed the question, what animal is it that in the morning goes on 4 feet, at noon on 2 feet, and in the evening on 3 feet? 4, 3, and 2. Add up to how many? Let's count them. A phi A, 1. Kappa alpha psi, 2. Phi beta sigma, 3. Sigma, what's this? No. This is phi beta sigma. Oh, no, that's phi beta sigma. This is omega psi phi. Oh, what we got here? Get the camera on the ones, know the answers. All right, let's go back. What's this one? Zeta phi beta. No. Sigma gamma rho. Where you at, sister? Right? How many that make? No. How many that make? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. What is this one? There's 4 male and there's 4 female. Who don't belong in there? The 4th one. Right there. Stripe. Now, the Boule makes the 9th one. The Boule is the first one. Go up to the top, put them in 1904. Now, the last of these was founded in the 1920s. Now, that was 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. That's a long time not for no one to come up with a 10th one. You understand that a 10th one would make it numerically insignificant. The Boule was postgraduate like Skull and Bones, postgraduate. Boule was postgraduate, and the initial 4 and 4 were undergraduate. Now, I used to say that, okay, fine, A Phi A, you all right, Kappa, you all right, it's the Boule I'm after. But now I understand that the Grecian Sphinx is connected to the number 9, and that 9 is the grouping of the Greek thing, and that they're a package deal. So if I hate Sigma Pi Phi, the Boule, I must hate A Phi A. I must hate Kappa Alpha Psi. I must hate Phi Beta Sigma. I must hate Omega Psi Phi, Zeta Phi Beta, Sigma Gamma Rho, Sigma Delta Theta, and Alpha Kappa Alpha. I must hate them all. How many of y'all in here in the Greek thing? Get your hands up. I got pictures of some of y'all. Now, my point is, the first commandment, thou shalt not worship false idols before thee. Y'all seen Charlton Heston 2 Sundays ago talking that shit. Y'all know y'all saw the shit. But the move is that you're not to. That's what the brother wrote Stolen Legacy for. It was a proactive thing. You are not to allow this. You are not to allow it. Now, watch this. This is something I didn't know either. Kind of hooks it together. The question is, does then the Boule know of the people that we're talking about? Watch this. Here is a tribute of Charles Wesley in the Boule magazine, the Boule Journal, written by Associate Professor of History, Vice President of Academic Affairs at Howard, Michael Winston. That Metropolitan A&M Church is just where I bumped in on Jesse Jackson setting up rumor control 2 days ago. Notice it used here the words, this is important symbolism, a bundle of relations, a knot of roots, or a bundle of sticks. That's a very important Masonic terminology that all throughout the history of Sigma Pi Phi is a discussion of the binding or weaving of men together in bonding or bundles of relationships. Don't underestimate that language. That language is symbolic of something. Now, this is a tribute to Charles Wesley, who wrote the history book. Charles Wesley, that died in 87, there's the history book, the first of the Negro Greek letter fraternities. There's the logo. Now, notice that the logo has the tail in the shape of an S for Sigma. Notice the wings are up or in flight, and it's in front of a vase. This vase has significance, and inside the vase you cannot see it, but is a wheel representing the 360 degrees of knowledge. That's the cover of their book. This was the first edition that came out in 1950, 15th anniversary edition, came out in 1954, written by Charles Wesley. But in Wesley's eulogy was something I think you might find interesting. It was a layout of quoting of words. In fact, let me push this up so you can see it even better further. The word, we're looking and tracing a certain word. We're looking and tracing a certain word. And the word is traced. You know, every time I come here, I read from this book. I talk about Carroll Quigley, who wrote the book, The Anglo-American Establishment, who also wrote the book, Tragedy and Hope. And I talk about it because Quigley, more than any other white man on earth, described the circle between his circle secret societies. I picked up Quigley's dialogue in the book, The Rockefeller File, None That Call a Conspiracy, bought the book, Tragedy and Hope, 1,300 pages, found the Jane Addams, Arnold Toynbee, Rockefeller, Oppenheimer, Rothschild connection, and the Cecil Rhodes coming together in a secret society. And in the back of the book, he names the names of who was in the various circles of authority. Now, the word that we're looking for is used. Read the boy's book. Look how many times he quotes Lord Tennyson. Look at the Boule history book and look how many times they quote Lord Tennyson. Check. Go find out what it was about Lord Tennyson that makes all these Boule Negroes quote him. It's very important. But look at what words do you find in both of those dialogues? There ain't but two words that come out the same. What words do you holler it out? What two words are in both? I heard it. Round table. Now look at what Wesley says. The round table lives only in poetic life and history. They can live again in life, and we can make them live through us. It can continue as a dream, and it can continue again through us. Now that's kind of mumbo shit, ain't it? You're looking at this shit that ain't making much sense, but it's encoded. You see, a secret society can do things in overt ways if you don't know the code. The only thing both of them are talking about is about the fair order of the table round. A model for a mighty world, meaning that, and what is this thing right here with a pike or a smoke on it? A pike on it. Charles Wesley uses, as Tennyson does, the dialogue that the round table is somehow connected to something that the Boule does in protecting the high evil one. You with me? Now, Carol Quigley, who we would consider the absolute authority on the subject, and I read this to you 1,000 times in his preface of his book, he describes words to describe what the secret society of Rhodes was about. Remember, the Rhodes Scholarship established by the terms of Cecil Rhodes' seventh will are known to everyone. What is not so widely known is that Rhodes in his 5 previous wills left his fortune to form a secret society, which was to devote itself to the preservation and expansion of the British Empire. Are they doing better or are they doing worse? Is there doubt in your mind? Now you got a president who slept with another woman for 12 years and called your governor mafia. Man. But the point of it is that this network is on the rise. They defeated the Skull and Bones network. And don't you think George Bush's wing didn't fall off his plane for nothing? They tried to kill his ass 2 days ago. I'm telling you, the Jewish community don't like George Bush. In fact, that ADL story I'm about to walk you into is being backed up by some of George Bush's buddies who holds the ADL responsible for part of the reason why he ain't president. You remember I came right to this podium, I talked about that white-on-white conflict between the Bush and the Anglo and the Jewish connection. And, in case you didn't see it, the most suppressed story in America, 2 days after Clinton was elected, was the story about David Steiner. What did he do? How many seats are holding here? How many? About 700? David Steiner was the president of the strongest lobby in the U.S. Congress. AIPAC, the American Israeli Political Action Committee. He said on the telephone with another Jewish man named Katz, who he asked for a $200,000 donation. He said, we got this Clinton in our goddamn pocket. We're going to have National Security Advisor, State Department. We got all the jobs. This is our nigga. And Katz recorded his phone call. But the important thing was that the story didn't come and went. $40 out of 71 spots. 41 out of 71 spots. The most important spots. Now, y'all voted for him. I got the pictures of y'all. Y'all got y'all voters registration card at the house. Because while y'all was in there pulling Sharpton, y'all pulled Clinton ass. Y'all know it. I got the precinct returns. I was better at that before I got to this than I got to this. Now, this society has been known at various times as Milner's Kindergarten. What'd that say? Now, what are we doing? What are we trying to do here? We fucking connecting the dots. Is there a group in the black community called the Round Table? So they're not talking about one of our groups, are they? Lord Tennyson don't even know nothing about us. He dead. But actually, it did have something to do with this guy. That picture I got from you. For good use to it. Well, he got me some good pictures. That's the man that put that thing together. He was a faggot. Never slept with a woman in his life. And in the December 12th issue of Nation magazine, he says, I built my dynasty out of the Kaffir's belly. Right. Now, that to me, inconclusively, lets me know that the Boule, in fact, protects the secret society. Now, check this out. Had a Boule guy on the radio the other day. I had a big lecture in Washington, D.C. His name is Wesley Brown. He's the first nigga to graduate from the Naval Academy. He was on WOL. I was supposed to be on, but I got canceled. Because they were doing a Memphis Appeal story. They had Dick Gregory and Mark Lane on for like 6-7 days in a row. So everybody got canceled. And even though I tried to tell them I could help their story, because I went beyond the Memphis. See, Memphis is a story to send you one way. Well, I'll say, since you brought it up, I'm going to take the story back my way. See, they bring the Malcolm thing up. You going to take the story that way? Well, great. I'm going to bring the Malcolm shit back over here my way. I don't care what they bring up. But one group, and we got the horses to be able to hook them back together to prevent that. This is me and Wesley Brown calling him in on the radio.
Thank you very much. Brother Larry, don't forget about the announcement.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Stan. 432-1450 is our number. Caller, thank you for holding. You're on 1450 with Mr. Wesley Brown.
Yes, Mr. Brown, my appreciation. As you heard them talk, and you talked earlier about that story in regards to the War Department, Secretary of War, spying on the black community as a threat to national security. I'm sure you saw in the story a particular name who was the special assistant to special assistant to Newton Baker, and the name was Emmett Scott.
Right.
And that is your fraternity brother of the Boule, who eventually became the grandsire archon of the Boule. And I'd like you to tell the audience, what does the word Boule mean? Why is the organization somewhat secret? Why is it sort of Greek? And what could you tell us about it?
Well, I would rather...
Now listen. Why am I doing this? I already know that he can't answer. But it's not for me that I'm doing it. It's for you. Because you need to see what I'm trying to say verified by the ones I'm saying it against. Check. This is no more than a document or an exhibit to be presented at a trial. Right? All we doing is laying leg work. And counsel come in and put this shit in the legalese, and boom, we'll be off. All right?
Mirror on that, only because I don't think it's Jim.
Okay, he's going to get his head. Listen.
And what could you tell us about it?
Well, I would rather demur on that, only because I don't think it's germane to our
discussion of the military and the services. You did sneak it in there a little bit with regard to his Emmett Scott's relationship to Secretary of War, but I would rather not really go into it.
Does the rules of the organization prohibit you from discussing the organization with non-members? And the problem becomes, Brother Brown, is that since 1904, our people have not had the benefit of understanding what the organization's role is, so that when we ask in a very humane and plausible way, we get somewhat similar to the answer you give, because we understand, if it is so, that the rules of the organization prohibit you from having this bridge directly to your people about the value of the organization. And as you can see, many people, I'm sure you see the flyers around, it's in the paper with the story in it about this meeting on the Boule tonight. And you can see why we must meet. You ought to see how many people are going to be there who want to know, and you have the opportunity to tell us now. Will you tell us now?
No, I don't think that this is germane. That was my first comment. I'll stick to that.
Do the rules prohibit you from discussing it?
Well, he prefers, brother, to not even respond to it at this time. What I will do is speak with Mr. Brown off microphone to see if he might be amenable to having a discussion on that particular subject matter to the extent of his knowledge and familiarity with it at another date.
I appreciate the opportunity, really I do. And I just turn to the people and say, I see y'all tonight, and now y'all know why.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. All right. All right. Now, remember, those aren't names of their members. Those are cities that they're in. They have a wide organization. That's the order of when the first one started on down and on up. They started with the Greek alphabet, and then they start doing it twice. So once they get to Chi, Psi, whatever, then it goes alpha, 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 beta, alpha, gamma, alpha, delta, alpha, epsilon. And of course, you know, you see New York come in right after Washington, which came in right after Memphis. Right, the Zeta chapter. And in fact, I thought it was interesting that in the history book of the Boule, when they showed the Memphis chapter, because I go right to Memphis to look for those Boule, look how they put the triangle behind the Delta Boule's logo, organized June 17th, 1910, Memphis, Tennessee. And of course, the Trilateral Commission uses that same symbolism in their triangle papers. Also, those three arrows, when they're pushed together, form this same triangle. And so we're now talking about a group that uses the number 9, uses symbolism, and also has many friends. This organization has over 3,300 members now. It's in 95 different cities, and it has one African chapter in Liberia, headquartered in Monrovia, after Monroe, the white president, who sent their asses over there. But just look, think of a city that you see, and think of friends you need to call to be on the alert and look out for the names. Now, one thing I want to say, Brother Oglesby can vouch for this. I spoke in Philadelphia on the Boule, and the black press in Philadelphia condemned me. Called me hootin', hanny, boot, talking, revolutionary, lap-logging, inflammatory researcher. And it says that the Boule are friends of the black community in Philadelphia, and they need to be honored and emulated rather than destroyed. But I can look on this city, on this list. Oh, we're going to show him in a minute. I know I kicked that ass in Durham. I kicked that ass in San Diego. I kicked that ass in Buffalo. I kicked that ass in Indianapolis. Dallas, Fort Worth, kicked that ass real good. Cincinnati, kicked that ass in New Orleans, kicked that ass in Nashville. In Nashville, in Tennessee State, the Boule logo is right in the walls of the theater. Because fists
See, all of the predominantly black colleges' presidents are Boule members. In fact, at one point, Jackie Robinson ridiculed Malcolm X for not speaking at any of the black schools. But the reality was the black schools wouldn't let him speak. And just like that with Coakley, Tuskegee, the president, come out and stop the students from writing up the check. At Southern, they just put down a $1,500 lecture because they said the president will not allow them. At Alabama State, the students had a walkout to try to get Coakley to speak, and that didn't help them either. At Hampton University, Uncle Bill Harvey, Boule, stood at the gates to stop me from coming on the campus to speak. At Morgan State, the President Richardson called the state troopers to the campus to throw me off the campus to stop me from speaking. And as long as I've been at Howard giving 50 different lectures, not a one of them ever been financed by Howard. I just rent the rooms. And so we're now talking about a whole group of black things, public schools, teachers, high schools, and then colleges built by a group of whites to keep militant blacks off the set and to protect the big, rich white man to continue to do the evil, to bring the world in unity for the rise of their Antichrist. All right. I couldn't tell you how honored I am as I go around the country and watch different groups come out. In Chicago, they putting Boule stuff on the street. African Minds United in L.A. putting out Boule information. People taking it upon themselves to flush that Boule stuff into the street, to put pressure on them. And even though I was attacked by the president of ASCAC in Zingarata in Atlanta in September for fucking with the Boule, because I'm supposed to know better, the Negroes tell me. But the Boule didn't attack me. The president of ASCAC did. Told me that the Boule gonna finance their scholars. You need to ask them. This is Brother Monk is walking down the aisle with a roll of tickets. I'm gonna auction off a Boule videotape. The raffle tickets are $1. It should be 1,000 of them sold. And as many raffles I bought, I'm gonna give off videos. So if it's $75 worth, I'm gonna give off 3 of them. And the brothers got them going up the aisle. Get them while we talking. And the one who wins, those that win for $1 will really be honored. And I want you to call me. I've had people call me when they won. And you ought to hear what they say about getting something for $1. This is just, you play the lottery. This is just something to allow people with less money to take a chance on winning something that they might not afford. And brother will take care of that. We'll do that quietly. But a tape that I did in Houston got caught in the hands of the Boule, and the Boule then went out and attacked me. A medical doctor in Columbia, South Carolina, attacked me where the ASCAC just had their national convention in March. He attacked me and said that we in the Boule don't like you, Coakley. You are a threat to our existence. And I said 9 is the combination, and I'm turning them locks, brother. You better quit if you're going to stop me. And so ASCACs, not the organization, though some of them have come to support her for things they don't even understand, which is blind loyalty. That can be dangerous. But the president of ASCAC in Zingarata works for IBM. Oh, blue eyes. And even though they done laid off thousands of people, they ain't laid her off. And if you sitting up running an African classical studying organization, running up in my white corporation, if you wasn't aiding and abetting what I'm doing, your ass out of work. So she works well and pays well. And I have said to her, you can never put yourself in position of standing up for something that you don't understand. And if money is the only reason why you're doing it, ask others. We might be able to help you if money is all you're looking for. But anyway, there's a tape back there called Special Message to the Boule, Threats, Intimidations, and Warnings. Need to check that. That's the video I'm going to auction off. Now, I'm going to jump off of the Boule. Not because I don't have more about the Boule to say, but I want to do the ADL like real quick. Also, I want to mention Julius Chambers and Honorable Robert Carter and Mr. Serena Buford, to go with Brisbane and Mr. Kenneth Chenault and Mr. Malcolm Corrin and Mr. Leonard DePaul. Y'all know that Corrin? He was your classmate? Oglesby, he done went to school, played golf, and hung out with more Boule than any black man in America. There ain't a Boule. That's Brother Oglesby down there. We're going to have a big date in Philadelphia coming up soon in June. We will. All right, I appreciate you, brother. I'll also should be back in town May 8th at the When Worlds Collide over at in downtown Brooklyn. For those of you that have to leave early, there are tapes of mine in that back alcove, sisters back there with little Mayat. Interestingly enough, our baby is named Mayat, but the name came from New York. There was a little old sister, and I don't know if a sister, I know sister isn't here tonight. We met her at the Brooklyn Street Fest. Little short sister has used to wear this little gold silver hat down on her head. She gave sister and I a card of Osiris and Mayat. And during sister's pregnancy, sister said, you need to rub this Mayat on sister's stomach. And we did it all throughout the pregnancy. Everywhere we went, we still got those two little cards in our baby bag. And a sister would remember this sister. I just don't remember the sister's name. You remember the sister's name? You know who I'm talking about? That sister gave us those cards. We kept those cards, waved them on sister's stomach, and when the baby was born, we for so sure thought it was a boy who was going to be Malcolm Marcus, that we didn't have a girl's name. So when the baby was born, it was a girl. We looked around for a name, and that little Mayat card just fell right out the bag. And that the baby was named Mayat. Now, I need to find this sister. I need to let her know. She does not know. I was not able to call her, but I need to let her know her impact on sister and myself. One thing I want to mention as I jump off the Boule is that somebody got to help me down there. One thing I want you to remember, that the first black Rhodes Scholar was Elaine Locke. Elaine Locke was the first black Rhodes Scholar, was one of the early members of the Boule in Washington, D.C. The liberal arts department at Howard is named after him. In fact, you know, Omega Psi Phi's #1 medal was also the Spingarn Award also. Also, the first winner of the Spingarn medal was Ernest Just, the founder of Omega Psi Phi. And Omega should get that Spingarn off their shit, too. How many Omegas in here? Bill Cosby and the others. Now, Elaine Locke makes this statement. I just want to say it quick. The dumb, dark masses have shown a more ready and ripe for action than the minds of the leaders and the educated few. Locke is talking about, we have for the president, in spite of Marcus Garvey's heroic efforts, no Zionistic hope or intention. You see, they blamed Marcus Garvey for being a black Zionist. So these Negroes repudiated black Zionism, and when Marcus Garvey went to jail, they came out and said, woo, we defeated him, and we have no desire to be what he wanted. But the dumb, dark masses, were urgently in need of a new opiate, for which we well understand, and Garveyism has shown how much more ready, ripe for action than the minds of the leaders and the educated few, the masses were. Meaning that after they wiped Marcus Garvey out, they looked down and say, the black man was really ready for him. And then he goes on to say, I hope we didn't make a mistake. Well, you did. But also remember, by making Elaine Locke the first black scholar, Rhodes Scholar, and Cecil Rhodes was a colonist, you start the process of the Rhodes Society Round Table, linking with the Boule Society, subordinate to the Round Table. Boule is advisory to or subordinate to. Real quick on the spy story in Martin, says the 8th Green Beret was down in Memphis at the time Martin King was killed. It also says that the Army spied on the black man. There's a picture of the Army behind a car. They're in the back seat of a car with all kind of radio equipment listening to different things on the radio, and it shows them sitting at the back seat of a car with all this electronic equipment at the bottom of the car, fixed into the car back seat, listening to all sorts of radio and other activity in the neighborhoods. This is the Memphis Commercial Appeal again about that story. I just wanted to mention that. There's loads of things in the story. I have one copy. Do you all have copies of the story? March 21st, 1993. We need to make these available for the people. That's just something we need to do. Now, let me step off of that, because one of the founders of the NAACP was Rabbi Stephen Wise, who also just happened to be one of the founders of the Anti-Defamation League. So now what we're saying is that we can hook the ADL and the NAACP through the uniformity in its founders. But what you must know about the ADL is that it is a fraternal order. It is a subsidiary of the Fraternal Order of B'nai B'rith. And you must never forget that. That is most important. In the story, in the ADL story, and I want to just at least put one segment of the story on the wall so you could see it. I think one of the more important parts, I'm going to see if I can blow it up. This is the San Francisco Examiner. And I'll move fast because I know the worst thing in life is working for the white man. It's nothing, there is no scummier, lower position with your people than having to work for the white man. And some of you will need to go because he demands and puts guilt on you when you don't have your body in good working order for him tomorrow when he starts to pay you. And you should feel bad. There's nothing filthier in life than doing what a white man says for money. And I wish you all got fired. Dr. John W. Parker, Godfrey Moraine, Dr. Marcus Moore, Dr. Thomas Winter, Mr. Donald L. Miller, Cornelius McDougall, Eugene McCabe, Judge Richard Bryant Lowe III, Mr. George R. Lewis, Mr. Ed Lewis, Mr. Edward Joseph Levy, Dr. Robert Lemieux, Mr. Ulysses S.K., Lowell Douglas Johnston, attorney. Oh, brother, you had to get it out the tape. I couldn't go that slow now. We laid it. I got to keep going. Mr. J. Vincent Johnson, Mr. John E. Jacob, Mr. John E. Hutchison III, Mr. Edward C. Horn, Mr. Benjamin Crooks, Mr. Paul Haywood, that was Hooks Crooks, Mr. Reverend Dr. D.S. Harrington, Conrad K. Harper, Esquire, Dr. Bernard Warren Harrelson, Charles J. Hamilton, Jr. Brother just gave me a tape where Charles Hamilton was on Bob Law show when a brother called in and said, "You're on the Boule. Coakley said so." And then Bob Law act like he been looking for me. I've been looking for Coakley. If you could get him on the air. Sorry, Bob. You haven't been looking for me at all. I've been here several times. Brother know my number. You're not lacking for finding me. You're not looking for me. But when pressed, you act like you're looking for me. Earl Graves, Jack Greenberg, who, like Jack Greenberg, is a white boy attorney from the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and like Joel Spingard, he was an honorary member of the Boule. Earl Graves, Charles V. Hamilton, Dr. Arwen Grenadi, Dr. Joseph Henry French, Mr. Kenneth A. Forday, Mr. Clarence Finley, Christopher Edley, Edward Dudley Jr., the Honorable Edward Dudley Jr., and the Honorable Edward Dudley and the Edward Dudley Jr. That's a family thing. Dr. Harold Doley, Dr. Walter Delp, Dr. Harry Delaney. We also got Benjamin Parker, Barrington Parker, Roberto Reed, Robert Rohn, Dr. Enrique Riggs, Mr. Harvey C. Russell, Mr. Williams Nichols Riles, Mr. Frank Savage, Dr. Melvin Shelton, Dr. Theodore Stent, Dr. Donald Stewart, Dr. William Taylor, Mr. Frank L. Thompson, Dr. Wyatt T. Walker, Dr. Wyatt T. Walker, 52 Delaware Road, Yonkers, Dr. Robert Weaver, big time connect. Malcolm from L.A. Yusef Shaw, The brother from L.A.? Yeah, didn't he die? The brother from L.A.? And Yusef Shaw died. There was 3 of them, wasn't it? That's deep. That's deep, brother. That's deep. Listen to me now. What'd you say? Jeremiah Shabazz was the last one. There were 3 brothers that spoke here that night. 2 of them dead. That's deep. And they spoke on the Spike Lee and X thing. Right, I saw the tape. I watched the tape in Washington. Brothers sent me the tape. All over the country. I say, I need to talk to Yusef Shaw. He gone. I say, I need to talk to Alex Haley. And sometimes they may get to them before we do. Listen. In Spike Lee's book, he asked him who killed Malcolm. He talked about zealots. The word zealots is used. Go back and see who interviewed and called themselves zealots. That's just check. You got to do your research. That's a whole nother subject. I got some Malcolm X analysis shit back there. That's another thing. Now, let's go back to the ADL. The ADL's in a tripartite thing with South Africa, Israel, and now they're setting up a network. They established that the ADL had documents from over 236 police departments. Now, when the ADL went to attack me in Chicago, and I made it clear on the radio this morning that I know the gimmick, they went to check for my criminal record. The deputy superintendent of police called me and told me they were looking for my criminal record. And I told him I didn't have one. I'd never been arrested. And he said, damn, I don't even believe there's a black man who's never been arrested. He said, but I'm going to proudly tell him you don't have a file. He thought I had snuck the shit away because I worked for the mayor. Then they looked to see if I stole money, and I ain't stole no money. And the comptroller called me from the city of Chicago saying, the Jewish people are here trying to get your secret money. He said, you ain't got none. You hiding something. I said, I don't have no secret money. I'm the lowest paid, poorest nigga in the mayor's office. Working from 2 a.m., 6 a.m. in the morning till 2 a.m. in the morning, every day. And then the ADL took those tapes from the Nation of Islam and a specific speech, compulsory education is mandatory strangulation, and thrusted it into the public and made the AIDS and Jewish doctor's statement the statement of Steve Coakley. Just 3 days ago in the Washington Post, a story condemning Jeffries, Farrakhan, and Coakley. And it goes in there, Professor Leonard Jeffries said, racial demagogue Steve Coakley, who charged the Jewish doctor's conspiracy with the responsibility for AIDS epidemic among black babies. But the point of it is that myself and Farrakhan were not even on Liberation Radio in Los Angeles that made the story. Only Jeffries had been on. But to make it look good and bad, they put me and the minister around him and muddied it up. But we were never on. But on Monday in Washington, I had the big Boule lecture. On Friday, the minister had a big lecture in Washington. And on Wednesday, we end up in a fake story. Not a story on what we did, but a story pissing on us probably for doing it. Anyway, the ADL, under the guise of so-called fact-finding, early warning system. Go back and look at another tape I did here. You see, I came here and told you the answer. In the other tapes I gave it to Slave, I talk about the early warning system. I read the 25 organizations that are in this early warning system, which was funded by the United Way. I mentioned on the radio today that story on the ADL is bigger than you think. Why were they paying the head of United Way so much? That got exposed recently is because he is closer to CIA than charity work. The head of the United Way is closer to the CIA than the Red Cross. And so the United Way may fund things that the ADL hides itself in. But the ADL was with the NAACP, the Urban League, and Operation Push, and the United Church of Christ, and the American Jewish Congress, and the American Jewish Committee, and the Human Relations Service of Chicago, and the Department of Justice Community Relations Service, among other groups. My only point to that is that I came here to this podium, and I read you of the Early Warning Network a year and a half ago. A year and a half later, they reveal a story about a spying on the community. And I'm saying that we ought to be entitled, get it here first. And if the ADL story ran in the Final Call before it even ran in the New York Times, what does that say for the Final Call? That's right, they're doing their work. The Memphis story run in the Final Call. It don't run in all the cities. That is the bridge to reach people. The article may be small, but it may lead you to another article. It may make you go out and find it. Now the ADL, where's the ADL's headquarters here? Yeah, I heard me mention it on the radio today. It's right under the Trilateral Commission. And when I came here and y'all put me in the hotel down there, we walked over there to their offices and couldn't even get in the lobby. We could not get in the lobby of the ADL headquarters. The Trilateral Commission in there, the Foreign Policy Association in there, and a whole bunch of other hate groups in there. The MTA is in there. What's that? Oh, yeah. Now you got a World Trade bombing, building up hysteria on Muslims. And then you got a group of guys who just walk and turn themselves in. Something funky up in here. Something don't jive. And I believe that some Jewish people bombed the place and put some jokes in the position of the evidence. I believe that, and I will never believe anything different. I will never believe somebody gonna bomb up a place and try to get a $400 refund. I will never believe that. I never would believe that the bomb would go off while the mayor was in Japan. Listen to me now. Who did that leave in charge when he wasn't here? The initial response was not put together by Dinkins. It was put together by other people. That's right. And you need to know that. Huh? Oh, who's that? Deputy Mayor, huh? Another dog's butt, huh? Huh? Boule? Police said to help spy on political groups. Anti-Defamation League seeks info nationwide. A small group of undercover operatives throughout the nation is being paid by the Anti-Defamation League to spy on pro-Palestinian, black nationalist, and white supremacist groups, according to a San Francisco law enforcement official. The operatives rely on local police and sheriff's deputies to provide access to confidential information in law enforcement files and motor vehicle information. David Dinkins, come before the people. Tell us, have you now or have you in the past cooperated, participated, or assisted a group known by the acronym ADL, Anti-Defamation League, in the information gathering on other black people? Have you ever done such a thing? And wherever he shows up next that you are, you must ask him that. He got a yarmulke? Yeah, he wore the yarmulke. Yeah. Yeah, the dunce cap. Yep, he wore it. Now, remember, this is an honor. I think this is an honor. Damn, I'm up to number 2. That is the, y'all can't see that? This is the ADL's list of black demagogues. Black public figures and community activists who have promoted anti-Semitism. I'm honored to be number 2. I'm seeking number 1. Move over, Farrakhan. Steve Coakley. Gus Savage, he been on this podium. Sonny Carson been here? Okay, we'll talk about that later. Al Sharpton. Leonard Jeffries. Brother G2. Kwame Ture. Decoy. Lenore Fulani and the New Alliance Party. Shit, all you got to do is call Fred Newman ass. You don't need to spy on her. Professor Griffin, Public Enemy. Amir Baraka. Ice Cube, LeGrand Klieg. And what I was so honored was, I was in part 3 on anti-Semitism on black student campuses. I was in part 2 with Professor Griffin, Public Enemy. I had my own spot in part 8. Look at this one here. Part 5, a case study in media bias. The New York Black Press. Radio stations. Now I heard that half-an-hour disclaimer on WLI. We ad-lib. We in no way, Mr. White Man, have ever or will we ever promote, assist, or help a nigga who wants to overthrow you. The disclaimer is longer than most guest time on the show. I don't know why. Right, say we didn't turn it off. Hey, check this out here. Here's the ADL jacking up. Hey, you want to know why Mickey Leland went into the mountain? No, let me tell you this. It's just a little sideline. I was talking earlier about Boule breakaway. Now watch this pattern. Martin King goes international, dies. Whitney Young goes international, dies in Africa. Even though he was jive timey and one of the few athletes to get involved in the South African thing, as phony as it was, Arthur Ashe in 79 refuses to play in South Africa, has a heart attack immediately. Keeps going with the anti-apartheid thing, has another heart attack, and is then given the AIDS virus. Or something. Mickey Leland, Boule, Houston, Texas, decides to go to Somalia 3 years before it's a news story. Check. He sees organized starvation, gets his ass in an airplane, falls into a mountain. Boule breakaway. Every time a Boule tries to go beyond the domestic confines of the white man, they're murdered. Just remember, Malcolm, international. Marcus Garvey, international. The emasculation of the people based upon the length of their reach. Black-Jewish relations discussed. Chicago Defender, November 5th, 1988. Interestingly enough, when the Memphis Spy story appeared in Chicago, it wasn't but one part they left out. They left out the Joel Spingard part. But Robert Abbott is the founder of the Chicago Defender, and you can find Robert Abbott in the philosophies and opinions of Marcus Garvey, because Robert Abbott went to the Justice Department and demanded that he be locked up and taken off the street for stirring up shit amongst the Negroes. So when the Defender does the story, they leave out leave out Joel Spingard, because his chief understudy was Robert Abbott, and this hooks in Ida B. Wells. This hooks in a whole bunch of shit we don't even want to swallow yet. And I'm saying, I'm in formation. Next time you see me, I'll have this even better, because I'm spending all my money now to buy the stuff to bring it back to you, because I believe it's something there. No applause. Don't waste your time. Black-Jewish relations discussed. Los Angeles. Although they were not on the agenda, Chicago's Jesse Jackson, Stephen Coakley, and Louis Farrakhan were the main concerns of Jewish leaders at a panel discussion of Black-Jewish relations at the National Executive Committee meeting of the Anti-Defamation League of B'nai B'rith in Los Angeles last weekend. Panelists were Congressman Julian Dixon, Mickey Leland, and Mel Levine, of Democrat of California, with Shirley F. Bromberg, director of the ADL's Community Service. Check this spot right here. Congressman Leland had not heard of the Coakley incident until some weeks after the Coakley thing. Some weeks after Coakley was fired from his city of Chicago position. He reminded the audience that most people outside of Chicago did not know who Coakley was, and while it may have been important to the Jews, blacks had more urgent problems on their agenda. In other words, he said, nigga, repudiate Coakley. And he said, I don't even know who he is. I got more important things to do. Nigga gets right up and drives into a mountain. And I can show you a meeting at Dillard University in New Orleans where they jacked up another group of guys. And Kenneth B. Clark, I don't even know him, stood up and said, I'm tired of you all yakking on Coakley. He's big-time Boule too, Kenneth B. Clark. But he stood up and said, I'm tired of you other Negroes bucking with this thing. And that was a big ADL meet, and Dillard then got a $3 million grant to set up the Center for Black-Jewish Relations, which is there now. But look up in Wesley's book how much money Dillard got, and Howard got, and Tuskegee got, and Talladega got, and Hampton got from the white man to set up the school anyway. Anyway, this is just another one of them stories where they run it. On the backside it says, Congressman Dixon, who earlier expressed admiration for the way the Jews are organized and how they support each other, business activities, was asked if he felt that his attempt at dialogue was one-sided, insomuch as there were no opportunities for blacks to express their concerns about the behavior of the Jewish community. You see, this is a meeting where they only get in the room to be jacked up about the brother man. Now, Jesse Jackson, of course, has already apologized, went with Edgar Brofman, the Seagram's liquor man, to Brussels, Switzerland, or Brussels, wherever, and got up in front of the National Conference on Zionism, World Zionist Congress, damn it, and called Zionism a liberation movement. As opposed to a murderous, bloody, terrorist, hate group organization. Anyway, so you're right. ADL denies any role in police spy network. The Anti-Defamation League has protested the LA Times report. By the way, when the San Francisco state's attorney came up with the subpoenas to raid the offices of the ADL in San Francisco and Los Angeles, the Los Angeles Police Department originally agreed to cooperate. But on the day of the raid, Superintendent of Police Bucky Williams refuses to attack the ADL's office and backs off of his legal responsibility to find the LAPD Information Police Department in their files. So he back down in San Francisco, had to go to LA to go into their offices. But check that out, going up in these white boys' offices. Last time I know somebody was in their offices was Hanaf Khalis, who took over the office in D.C. when he took over D.C. to attack the killing of his children at his house on 16th Street in Washington. And that had something to do with Lou Alcindor, Kareem Jabbar, who bought the house for him. And he told me that while he had the ADL trapped down on their knees with their heads between their legs, with swords over their heads, the FBI came in and read the files and allowed them to hold them in hostage longer than necessary to allow them to read the files. And what about this fake Jesus sighting in Waco, Texas? Look, let the motherfuckers stay there 47 days or some shit. They wouldn't let us stay 47 minutes. Burned a whole motherfucking community of 61 houses because the loudspeaker was up too high. The move didn't even kill nobody. Yahweh didn't kill nobody. Found him not guilty and he's still in jail. Is there justice in America? It will never be in the name of America. Yeah, there will never be justice under the name L.A. Anyway, we must do certain things. I just lost a speech in Trenton College in New Jersey because the ADL, the Hillel House, attacked the students, and the students who have yet to make up their mind. See, it's one thing you pay to go to a school, $10,000, $12,000, you end up in debt. But then somebody else starts telling you what to do, the administrators. Don't put no money in the pot. Then other students start telling you what to do, and the students told me that they had agreed with the Jewish students not to bring any controversial speakers. I said, name me a white controversial speaker. He said, there are none. I said, name me black controversial. Coakley, Farrakhan, Jeffries. He started going down the list. I said, well, how could you sign on to that, son? He said, oh, brother, we love you. I said, no, you don't. I said, serve me like the one you say you hate. But what you need to know is that the Hillel houses are the ADL spy operation on the college campuses. And you got to go on the campuses and fuck with that Hillel house. Oh, you can put the pressure on, brother. They got the heat. They walk in and out that door every day. Rabbi Schinderfeller in the UCLA Hillel house know what an ass kicking is about. Ask him. He ain't took nobody to jail. We called that motherfucker and said, you fuck with them students at UCLA over the protocols, we will kick your ass, and my name is Steve. And he withdrew his complaint. He didn't run to the jail. You see, there's some things jail and law can't do for somebody when you're after them. So don't get caught up in it. Don't appeal to the nature. Brother, you get back in yet? Not yet? Shit, you might as well be the Supreme Court of the new government under the new court of the revolutionary people, because they probably will never let you in this. We should start the process of creating the new one. And the new one should be right there on the wall waiting with the new health system, and a new school system, and a real organization for all of our people, not a Boule or segmented one. These are things that have to be. We're just in the process of a whole lot going on. White man want to look up a little war. We're not interested in Rodney King. That motherfucker got a lot of problems. He ain't gonna help us do shit. He promised to give up no money. We will go off, but when we say so, not when they egg so. And look, and when we go off, just where we going, we ain't going none of them pity spots either. So we're not falling into that. And overnight, I'm gonna tell you just something in a little sidelight as I close, is that over the last couple of weeks, we watched at midnight, 1, 2 a.m. The rail yards were bringing in tanks to the major cities. You go to your rail yards here, near the nearby ways, see what's on the track. The tanks are sitting there. They were brought in over the night into most of the major cities, and they brought them in overnight so you didn't see them and get apprehensive. But they're there, and we're not afraid of a tank. The tank is a symbolism of what they could do to overpower themselves. No question, no question. And they just can't hold it back. But Rodney King might not be our shot. I don't care what nobody do. Again, the ones that do the violence have a role like the ones who rearrange the furniture in the front room after they bust down the front door. So we're not into saying who can't do what. We're all together. Brother Monk, where you at with the raffle? How many raffle tickets you sell? Hey, Monk, you got to come quick. You got to do this quick. Come on, this row right here, right on the other side. Right here on this row. How do you? Weiss? What does Weiss do? He's a rabbi. Hey, Brother Monk, where you at? Hey, Monk, where you at? Oh, come on quick, brother. Brother Maddox. What'd you say? Brother Monk. I hear you, Mike, but I can't see you. Taking up control of its political leadership, taking control of its economy for 50 years, and it said by the time we get through starving Africa, it will beg to be recolonized. That's in the latest issue of Foreign Affairs called Retreat from Africa. Deep story. Most newsstands, most bookstores. Where's the CFR headquarters in Washington? And then announce regional offices in their area and sign up for mutual sharing of information. When the riots in L.A., the rebellion in L.A. came down, William Webster was the chairman of the committee to investigate. It is no coincidence that the head of the FBI, the head of the CIA became the person to investigate the rebellion in Los Angeles. That's no accident. Brother Monk, hold the bag while you're back there so I can count how many videos I got to give away.